Alrighty, so let's get started. As I said, there was a very large number of people, about 60 people registered for this, and you guys have turned up. That's great. But we're going to have a great conversation, and I really wanted to do this conversation at this time of the year for a particular reason. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Grant Herbert. It says so on the bottom of the screen there, and I am in Sydney. And what I do is help lawyers and accountants and other professional services people all across the world to be able to increase their influence, their income, and their impact without burning out. And I have been doing that now for the last 17 years, having come out of a corporate career and a military career before that. I love the opportunity to be able to help other people through what I call my journey of imperfection. Okay, so let me just switch screens there and let's go a little bit deeper. One of the greatest things that I did this year is I finally wrote a book called Professional Services Leadership. For years, I had people ask me, where can I get a copy of your book? And I'm thinking, well, if I ever write one, I'll let you know. But finally put together a book, really, really proud of that. And it's 17 years of experience in working in professional service firms, helping and assisting people with things like what we're going to talk about today. You can grab that on Amazon if you want to. I didn't write the book to make money about it. I want to get it out in the hands of people for them to be able to, not go through the stuff that I went through in my corporate career. All right, so I want to lay a little bit of a foundation around why today's topic is important, then we're going to jump straight into it. All right, so in a world where there's so much self-induced isolation, people got their, faces glued to a screen all the time, conventional ways of developing people just don't work anymore. We've got to be able to shift the way we do most things nowadays anyway. Because here's what I'm finding as I continue to do this work around the world. People are still condemning people that are different to them. Whether it's consciously or subconsciously, and I, don't want to go deep into this to take it off track, but, we had an example of this, a devastating example of this happen here in Sydney just on Sunday. So when people do want to stand out or they want to be different or they have an opinion that is different to the one that others have, it's got consequences. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of is communication fatigue, where there's so much trying to get our attention. I'm super excited that you're here today. There's plenty of other things you could be listening to right now. And I'm also mindful when I'm doing these things that some people are multitasking and they're doing those other things as well. So we can get a little bit communicated at. So I'm going to make sure today this is a conversation as well. So it's not just me talking at you. The other thing is constant conflict. I do a lot of work about identity and internal conflict, but I'm talking about conflict with others. And I don't know what your relationship is with conflict, but I don't like it all that much. I'd rather not have it if I could. Although I've learnt how to navigate it differently, and I'm going to help you with that today. The other thing too is this consistent change. Being able to set a path and go on that path and hope that it stays that way for a while is more challenging. I remember many years ago, I went with a friend and we did, give me a wave if you've heard of that thing called step aerobics. It is dating me. I don't know if they do it anymore. So it's just me. All right. So step aerobics is where, they've got this step. I've got one under my desk that I pull out and I use during the day as well to get some energy going. And what happens is the lady would be telling us what to do, right? So we'd be going, and I'd be just getting that one down pat, and now she changes it to this one. And that's what it feels like every day when we go to work, when we go into doing what we're doing. And the problem with teams that operate like that, people that operate like that, is you get disengagement and you get dysfunction. And sometimes it feels like you're pushing a car uphill. A car that's run out of petrol or it's broken down. Sometimes we can feel a little bit like that. However, when you make some changes, when you look at things differently, when you tackle the things that I've tackled in my book, you learn to celebrate diversity. You look at a patchwork quilt like this, it doesn't look all that good on its own, but it's all these little pieces together that come together to make what it is. And that's what I believe the world gives us an opportunity to have. And if we look at that in the context of the workplace environment, celebrating diversity, not just in, culture, in sexual orientation and gender and the things that we all focus on, but celebrating diversity of thinking and diversity of ideas and diversity of experience. When we celebrate those things, then things change for the better. When we develop communication cut through, you're all very young people. When I was, you may not relate to this, but when I was young, we used to play with whatever we had, right? And we'd get 2 jam tins. Back then, jam used to come in a tin and, you'd get one of those can openers that had cut it out with a jagged edge, and then you'd get a nail and put a hole in the end, and you'd do 2 of those and put some string through the inside of it and tie a knot, and then when you pull it, you could listen in one and talk in the other, person could talk in the other, and you could sort of hear it. Well, communication's come a long way beyond that. However, we still need to be able to communicate in a way that cuts through all the noise that's going on. When we learn to do that, things are a lot more smooth as well. When we learn to navigate conflict, and I love this word, I love to think that everything that I'm doing is a journey. So navigating conflict as opposed to managing it or enduring it or hiding from it. When we navigate conflict, when we've got a structure, then it actually becomes a good thing. When our leaders, and that's us, by the way, because we're a leader of, even if it's just ourselves, or at least a leader of one, when we inspire change instead of it being a problem, then these things together give us cohesion and commitment. I'm a bit of a F1 fanatic these days. I never used to be. I've been following it with my son over the last couple of years, and I know every driver now, and I understand where every event is, and I understand that Oscar Piastri came 3rd in the Drivers' Championship instead of 1st, as he could have, but that's okay. We'll get him next year. But the thing I love about an F1 team is that everyone is needed. Even if you're just the guy that's at the front, that when the car comes into the pit, you put the jack underneath and you push it down and the car goes up. You can't change the tyres or do anything until that guy does that. So everyone's important. And if we think about ourselves as a driver, then we can't do any of that and win any of those races or do what we need to do unless we've got a team around us. So for me, as I lay this platform before we get into talking about conflict to collaboration, I've come up with what I believe are the 4 pillars of teamwork. And a pillar obviously is something that holds everything up. The first one is collaboration. Collaboration is working together. Collaboration, as this image shows, is, the shark there, each of those small fish on their own aren't going to be able to do much. But coming together, they're going to be able to tackle that obstacle. So collaboration is a vital part of teamwork, as is communication, and communicating in a certain way, communicating in a way that doesn't just serve us and the way we need to be communicated to, but communication that is mutually beneficial and allows others to have that clarity as well. The third pillar is how they handle conflict. Now, I'm not talking about internal conflict. I'm talking about working with other people and the conflict that happens there. Because I don't know if you've found this, but sometimes people can be a little bit challenging to get along with. Sometimes people think differently, have different perspectives. So learning to navigate that is important. And a big one is how they handle change. Change is one of those words that even when you say the word change, some people, they get this sense all over them of, oh no, we're not going to change again, are we? But we need to, in a world that's fast-paced in change right now, we need to be able to tackle that. And this, what I'm talking about today, comes out of the 9 crucial shifts that I've developed that I think every one of us need to be able to go through in our personal, our professional, our people leadership, so that we can thrive and survive in today's world. And this shift is in the area of relationships, which is going from conflict to collaboration. All right, so I just wanted to lay a little bit of a platform. Let me just check in with you before we get into the main area of what we're going to be talking about today. And if you can use the chat box, that'd be great, so I'm not just having a conversation by myself. What's going through your head right now? When I looked at those 4 pillars there, when I looked at the challenges and the things to do differently, what thoughts were coming up for you? I'm going to just have a quick sip of water here so I can keep talking for the hour. But let me hear your perspective. Join the conversation in the chat. Some people, when I do these things, are thinking, oh crap, this guy's interactive. He wants me to say stuff as well. But what you've got to say is important. Diversity of thinking is what I love. So Vicky says, definitely whoa, love that when you start reading and it moves. Definitely the change and communication comments resonated. Thank you. Marie or Maria, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Change for me is something that stood out. Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. I had some other people join as well. I didn't get a chance to say hello to, but they must have dropped off again. Okay, anyway, we'll keep going. All right. And if you are a little bit shy and you don't want to put in comments, that's totally okay. I'll check back in with you a little bit shortly. All right. So what we're going to talk about today then is shifting from conflict to collaboration. So here's what I know. When conflict is used in a healthy way, it actually empowers people to work together more effectively. Now, conflict can be a good thing. Now, what I'm not saying is go back to, whatever you're doing after we've done this and get into some conflict with people. No. However, conflict can actually help people to develop stronger relationships. So shifting our mindset as to how we think about that, and I've talked about that over the last couple of weeks on the videos that I've been dropping in LinkedIn. Looking at it differently and thinking, okay, well, conflict's going to happen. How can we leverage that to grow our team is really important, because people have conflicting agendas. Not everyone has the same reason for doing things or wanting things to happen. We see that all the time. There's sometimes this win at all costs mentality. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been in a conflict with a significant other that went on for quite some time, and you might be 2 or 3 hours into it and you have no idea what the initial conflict was about, all you want to do at this point is win. Now, I know that's not just me, right? We're human, right? So win at all costs becomes the goal. Toxic emotions, people not being able to navigate their emotions in a healthy way. And emotions are not something we want to stop or we want to ignore or suppress. However, we do need to be able to have emotional intelligence. These things create relationship breakdown. Now, if this is in the workplace context, that costs a lot of money and time and energy. Statistics say that it costs a year's salary of someone to replace them. And I've found over the years that is ridiculously conservative. If you look at what it does to the whole team environment and all the energy that's got to go in, it's way more than that. So we want to be able to protect those relationships. So when we shift to a collaborative model, when we learn what we're going to learn today, we can have increased cohesion. People want to work together. People have mutual respect for each other. People are able to, instead of reacting emotionally, they're able to make rational decisions and solve things together because they're using their prefrontal cortex. They're not trapped in the unregulated emotion. We can have harmony, we can have peace, we can have collaboration, which is going to bring us the results that we want. So let me just introduce you to 5 key principles that I had to get my head around. And then I'm going to give you some practical things to be able to take away. So here's the first one. Conflict is inevitable. All right? People are going to butt heads. As we said, people are different. Have you noticed that not everyone's like you? Have you noticed that people think differently? I've been saying for a number of years now, particularly in that, what did we have? We had something started with C. I can't remember what it is now, a few years ago. Particularly in that, I found that people just didn't get on, and social media exacerbated that. And, my belief is that it's okay for someone to have a different opinion to me. It doesn't necessarily make either of us wrong because it's our perspective. So conflict is inevitable. It's not a matter of getting rid of conflict. It's always going to be there. The second one is relationships always need to be a priority. I don't care how much AI, whether it's generative or conversational AI or whatever it is, I don't care how much of that there is. There's always going to be human-to-human connection, human-to-human contact. And relationships are going to be a priority at all the time. We need to get on with each other to be able to get things done together. So this is something that we need to, by the way, if you can hear that barking in the background, that's my dog going crazy. I was really hoping my delivery would turn up before the webinar, but that's okay. She'll stop barking shortly, and she's about this big, but she's got a huge bark that makes up for it. The third principle is we need to, and you've all heard this before, but we need to seek to understand. We always want to be understood. I want to get my point across. I want everyone to know what I'm saying and what I'm thinking. No, we need to seek to understand, and there's certain ways that we can do that. One of the greatest skills that every one of us can have, and this comes into our communication, is a deep, active listening. I'm not talking about the type of listening that when my wife's asking me something while I'm watching the cricket. That's surface level. I mean deep understanding of not just what's being said, but what's not being said. Being able to feel what the other person is experiencing. This is a vital part of being able to navigate conflict. Number 4 is to focus on issues. We've heard it before, right? Instead of focusing on the person and making it personal, focus on the issue. And I know that that's not as easy as saying it to do, because it's the person that's in front of me right now. It's the people. So we are emotional beings, and because we have those 3 universal fears of not being enough, not belonging, and not being loved, these things happen. This is, the people. But what we need to do is be able to use emotional intelligence to be able to navigate that emotion and the whole situation in a way that still allows us to come back to the prefrontal cortex for a decision on what we say and what we do that's going to help each person involved. And number 5 is to go what I like to call the triple win. So it's further than the win-win. This is a triple win. This is a win for you, it's a win for them, and it's a win for the greater good. Have you ever been in a meeting in your career and there's like 2 people in that meeting, right? And this was normally me and someone else. There's 2 people in that meeting that just aren't gelling in what they're wanting to put down. And everyone else is just sort of thinking, whoa, what's going on here, right? That has an effect. In the family, these things, that's the same thing. It's the environment. So we want to be able to have an environment of conflict that says this is something that we do. We know we're going to have conflict. let's do it in a way that is good for everybody. All right, so let me check in again, and hopefully you're ready to give me some thoughts. I'd love you to just pop in the chat box some thoughts that you might have around anything. What was something there? What was the thing that stuck out for you the most? And then I'm going to talk about the styles of conflict that we can actually use. Let me just pop the chat open again here. Take another sip of water, give you a chance to write it in or type it in. I'll read a couple of them out as they come out, and then we'll keep moving. That conflict can be a good thing. People, including me, are often afraid to rock the boat. Yeah, and look, hey, I will make an assumption as to what rock the boat means, and yeah, I totally understand. And we're gonna talk about that in the conflict styles that we can utilize in a moment. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else? That's okay. All right, for the sake of keeping this rolling, I'll come back and check that again in a moment. Let's jump in and keep going. All right, so as I said, let's look at conflict styles. So conflict styles, two things. One, there's a go-to style that most of us have. Right? This is what happens when conflict happens, right? And then I want to look at it in another way as well, is I'm going to talk about these conflict styles so that you can utilize different styles in different situations. So having a go-to style is okay, but if it's not conducive for resolution in all situations, then it becomes something that's not serving you. All right, this is the one that most people have as their go-to, and that is avoiding. All right, head in the sand, putting it in the context is I'll just do my work here and when I look up, it's going to be gone, right? Like a little meerkat, it's scurrying away, then look up, oh no, it's still there, right? And avoiding, although it is a great style to use sometimes, it's not a good go-to, right? Because yes, people are afraid to rock the boat. So it's the reason why you're avoiding the conflict that can be the problem. Now, sometimes there's conflicts that it would be good to avoid. I know myself. I get involved in conflicts sometimes that I can perhaps stay out of, and that used to mainly involve my wife and teenage children. Right? She's doing a great job of sorting it out, and I felt like I needed to jump in. Yes. However, there's other times where if I'm just sitting back, that's not going to help as well. All right, so the central theme of this is just being evasive, hoping it goes away, and as we know, it doesn't. The next one can also be challenging. This is the wave the white flag. This is accommodating. This is similar to avoiding, but to maintain the interpersonal relationship at all cost, with little or no regard for yourself. It's letting people win all the time. It's letting people walk over you. It's avoiding the difficult conversations, etc. And that can be a challenge as well, because as leaders and leaders of ourselves and others, we've got to speak up. We've got to learn to be comfortable to navigate the conflict rather than just go, okay, whatever you want. Because I don't know about you, but have you ever thought that or said that, look, whatever you want, and I'll just get, but that's not really what you feel. So you go away feeling worse about the situation and, down on yourself because you didn't speak up. So it's another style of conflict that can be used. However, it's not always the best. Then there's the other extreme. This is competitive. This is like, well, the only reason I'm in this conflict is to win. Right? I'm there to ensure that my personal goals are met, that I don't care about relationships or anything. I see it purely as a win-lose proposition, which is totally against what I'm talking about with the triple win. Now, unfortunately, you're probably thinking of someone right now who that fits, and that's okay. Let's not type those into the chat box. Emotional intelligence, I've just got another comment here. Emotional intelligence, some have a lot of it, others not much. Dealing with conflict with those that can't regulate makes conflict challenging. Yeah, look, it does. And Mari, is it Mari? Give me a yes if it's Mari. Is it Mari or Marie? So that actually...
Yeah, it's Marie.
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you.
Marie.
So
yeah.
Marie, thank you. So Marie, that's why emotional intelligence, I devoted a whole shift out of the 9, shifting from that singular intelligence to multiple intelligence, and beyond emotional intelligence, but social intelligence, which is being able to navigate emotions with other people who are also emotional beings. So I totally agree with you. Thank you for that. So the 4th style is collaborative. All right, this is where everyone works together in harmony. The interpersonal relationships are up here as being important, and everybody's wanting to help everyone to achieve their goals. And they're not only other people working for their own self-interest, but they're working for the greater good, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could have that all the time? Well, the reality is, whenever we're working with humans, that's not going to happen. This is the type, this is what we want to aim for with our conflict. And the 5th style is compromising. Compromising assumes that a win-win situation is not possible. All right, so the person that compromises adopts a negotiating stance, right, where they give a little and ask for a little in return. Now, although this can be used well to get some movement in a conflict resolution situation, it can also be used to manipulate. And so you've got to be mindful of when people are doing this. You know, I don't know if you've ever had it happen where someone will give you something and then give a little bit and then they go, hang on a minute, I gave you that, right? So it becomes a bargaining chip or something to hold over you. So you've got to be really, really mindful of how that is used. But sometimes it can be a good style to go, okay, well, we're not going to solve this today. So to move forward, before we come back around the table again, I propose this. And you do this, I do this, and it's a little bit of a compromise. So they're the 5 styles. So before I just put that into a little model and show you some more stuff around that, just pop in the chat box. What do you feel is your go-to style? Is it avoiding? Is it accommodating? Competitive? Collaborative? Or compromising? What's your go-to? That'd be great if you could pop that in for me. And there's no right or wrong answer or no judgment as to which way. You know, it's just what you have grown to think works best for you. So Marie, compromising. Yeah. And being the lovely person you are, Marie, I'm going to make the assumption that that's the good compromising, not the manipulative one. Yes. Professionally, collaborative and compromising. Thank you, Melissa. Vicky, probably too much of avoid or accommodate. Would like to be more collaborative, compromise. Fantastic. I'm going to show you how. And personally, Melissa says personally accommodating. Yeah, so there's stories behind that, which obviously is not appropriate to go into right now. I'm not going to ask you about that. But that's a good point that Melissa makes there. Sometimes we can be different at work to what we are at home or in other situations, and that's okay. All right, so let me just show you, before I jump in and give you an actual practical process to take away as we're finished today, let me just show you a model of where these fit in. So if I look at the 2 continuums there, so the horizontal line is the concern that style shows for the relationship, and the vertical line is the concern for self. Obviously, where the two meet, that's sort of zero, no, none of it. And then the further we go out, it is more of it. Okay, so let's have a look at it. So the first is avoiding. So avoiding, and I'm talking about avoiding as being a go-to. I'm not talking about it being, okay, this isn't a conflict that I need to be involved in, but one that you as a leader need to be involved in. Avoiding shows no concern for the relationship or for self. Now, please, if you're an avoider, I want you to resist taking that on as, oh, I'm terrible at this, and giving yourself another reason not to feel good about yourself. This is just an awareness thing. So that's where avoiding sits. Competitive, on the other hand, shows totally concern for self and none for the relationship. And once again, I'm talking about here being the extremity of just using that all the time. Accommodating shows a lot of concern for the relationship, but little concern for yourself. Collaborative is obviously the sweet spot of where we want to be. It shows concern for both self and the relationship. And if we look at compromising, it sort of sits in the middle. There's no, way, because it's of the way it can be used. There's no way of really putting where it is. So you can see there from that we really want to get to a point where we're collaborating, where we're using a collaborative style of conflict resolution. So let me check in with you. Happy for you to type it in, or you can unmute, do whatever you feel comfortable to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any questions that you have. Sage says that you have to run. Hopefully it's still there no, you've gone. I'll make sure that she gets a copy. All right, yeah, so any questions, any comments that you want to make? As I said, I want to make this a conversation. Before we jump in, and I give you a 5-step process, so you've got a practical thing to take away from this that you can start using today. I just want to check in with you first. If you haven't got anything that you want to say or ask, give me a good to go in the chat box, or just like the young kids do, we'll abbreviate that with GTG, and then we'll keep going. If my children were here listening to me right now, and my youngest are 23-year-old twins, they'd be going, Dad, stop trying to be funny, you're not. Okay, so Vicky, thank you. Curious as to why avoidance shows no less concern for the relationship. Does it not suggest you want to maintain the status quo and risk upsetting things? Thank you for asking the question, Vicky. So here's the thing. Firstly, as I said, it's about that model that I showed you was when that's all you ever use. You just totally stay away from conflict, right? So that's the first thing. It's in the extremity. So, and I also said that avoiding can sometimes be a good thing if it's not your conflict. I don't know if you've met some people, I certainly know them, and I was one of them in my corporate career who just felt like they had something to say in every conflict, even if it was nothing to do with them, right? But what I'm saying here is that if you're just going to avoid conflict, you're not going to move anything forward. If you're going to avoid conflict, put your head in the sand, and just not worry about it. And as you said there, not risk upsetting things and maintain the status quo. Well, here's the thing. If the status quo is not allowing the team to move forward towards what it is that we want to achieve, then that's not a good thing. So can you understand what I'm saying? In that situation, if you're just avoiding it, it's not helping anybody, is another way of saying it. So that's a good point, right? And once again, it's as I said when we went through them, to be careful not to judge yourself and go, oh, I avoid conflict all the time, so I'm on the bad end of the scale. I don't care about it myself, and I don't care about others. No, that's not the message to take away. The message to take away is perhaps these other styles could be used in some situations. All right? I really hope that helps, and thank you for asking. So here's the other thing too, just as we go into this 5-step process. In a situation that could be just one or two, two people, could be a group of people, it could be over a length of time, you can use different styles in different parts of that. Sometimes I get to the point where if it's a decision that is, as a leader of my team, if it's a decision that I need to step up and make, then although it's not my natural style and it's uncomfortable, I need to pull out a bit of competitive and go, no, this is what we're doing, right? However, other parts of that conflict is I want to get the people to go through the process I'm going to show you now so that they come up with a solution together and the conflict actually becomes a part of our growing together. All right, so let's slip in and have a look now at something practical you can take away as we finish up and get any questions that you have. So I love processes, right? If you've got a process that says do this, then this, then this, then this, it makes it a lot simpler. And a lot of reason why a lot of people avoid conflict is they don't have this process. Right? It's not that you don't care about the relationship or yourself, you just don't know what to do. So processes are great. And what a lot of people do when I teach this in organizations is they actually, I say to people, just create a one-page sheet that's branded for you and your team, and every conflict situation you go into, take it with you so that you know what to do. But anyway, it's the concept that we want to get first. So step number one is to set some boundaries. Now, once again, and all the work that I do goes back to the first shift, which is around your identity, right? Whether or not you're going to do this will be dependent on your level of personal power. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. But set some boundaries. So that says this is the way, and this is normally done by the leader, but what you want to do is get agreement on these boundaries as a start place. So this is the way we're going to deal with each other. All right, we're going to make sure that only one person talks at once. We're going to listen to everyone's perspective, whatever it is. So there's some rules. And because this is the first step, this is the first opportunity to get agreement and to get collaboration. What I mean by that is by saying, instead of telling the rules as the leader, asking a question and saying, okay, so we're going to work this out together, team. What are some guidelines, some rules you want to put around this, around how we deal with each other as we're going through with this? Right? And invite that from the other people. I think, that we've got to make sure we keep our voices just at normal conversational tone. That's great. Let's do that and whatever. So this is everything as we go through this process. Yes, there's 5 steps, but they all have more than one intrinsic benefit, if that makes sense. It made sense in here. Hopefully it translated when I put it out there. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, the reason why we want to do a set of guidelines as well is that if that goes off track as we're going through the process, we can go back to a set of rules, a set of guidelines, not a person or their behavior, and say, hey guys, do you think we are sticking to what we said here? We did agree that we were all going to let just one person talk at once. Right? So it's taking it away from creating more conflict by going, Grant, stop talking. Vicky's talking now, right? So having those rules are really important. Once we've established those, the second part of the process is to gather information, and to gather information in a way that takes a satellite view. What I mean by that, 2 things. 1, information means the data. We want to just write down the facts. We want to get everyone to just put the facts out there. But we're doing it in a way that we're above it. We're not in it. We're just looking at it as data. And this, once again, needs emotional regulation to be able to do this. So we're taking a satellite view and we're just getting it down. All right, we're getting everyone a chance to just put their information out there. The third area, or the third step, I should say, is to get agreement on what the problem is. Sometimes conflict situations, people see a different problem because it's different for you as it is for me. So therefore, we're not even trying to solve the same thing, right? Give me a nod if you've ever had that happen. So what we need to do now, and this is once again giving that extra layer of agreement. So team, what's the actual problem here? Right? I'm a very simple person, very logical. I want to ask simple questions. So team, what do you think the problem is here? And find out if we have agreement on what that is. Now, if there are two problems, then what the leader needs to do is guide the process and go, okay, well, we've got two problems here. Let's deal with them one at a time, right? And separate the two unless they are linked and a part of the same thing. All right, so we've set some boundaries, we've gathered some information, and we've agreed on the problem. Then this is where the collaboration continues. Now we brainstorm possibilities on how we might tackle the problem, how we might solve it. And once again, we're not just dictating at all. We're saying, okay, team, how could we solve that? How could we fix that? What do you see as being a way that we could move forward? And brainstorming those. And then the last step is to negotiate the solution. So what we've done is we've agreed on the problem. We've looked at the possibilities. Now we're going to choose, okay, well, this is the way that we're going to do it. So we're getting another level of agreement on that. And now we're going to start being a point where we can actually start doing something about it. So 5 steps: set the boundaries, gather the information, agree on the problem, brainstorm the possibilities, and then negotiate the solution. All right, so let me check in with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to answer any questions. We've got a few minutes left to be able to do that, so you can get off with the rest of your day or your lunch or whatever it is that you were doing. And I'd love to hear from you. What do you love about having that process? Now, I'd love to hear your voice. You don't have to type it in, but you can if you want to. What do you love about that process? How do you see that helping to be able to move through conflict in a healthy way? Let's give you a chance to pop that in. And by the way, if you're watching this in the recording because things changed and you weren't able to make it, I'd love to see it down in the comments as well. That'd be great. It's a clear framework for everyone to work to, so you're on the same page. Yeah, love that. And what I love about it as well is that it can go off track, right? Let me say something which is obvious, and I know you know this. It's not a matter of, I've got this 5 things now, so we're just going to stick to them and everything's going to be fantastic. No, it doesn't work that way, right? However, if you are leading the resolution process and, people are starting to get into what they see the problem is, it's a matter of being able to go, hey, team, we're going to talk about what the problem is in a moment. What we're still doing at the moment, though, is just gathering some of that information. We just want to make sure we've got everything so that everyone gets a chance to talk. So it gives you a clear framework that you can go down, but also back to when things go off track. Love that. What else? What if the solution can't be agreed on? That's a good point, right? So and look, I'm only going to be able to give you a general answer here because I don't know the full context, and I know you're asking a general question, right? You may be thinking about one particular situation, but everyone's not here for that. So here's the thing. I haven't got all those people here in the room. So here's the thing. If it can't be agreed on, then we could go deeper and work out what that problem is as to why we can't agree on, and or the leader needs to then step up and go, okay, everyone's, we're not coming to a resolution here on what the actual problem is. Here's a problem that I see. Let's work on that. And then hopefully some other, let's see what comes out as we're going through that. So this is where the leader needs to be able to, if it's me, I need to put my big boy pants on, and instead of avoiding the conflict, I need to go, okay, we're going to move this thing forward, right? Because it's not acceptable that we just let this fester. We've got to fix it. Hopefully that helps, Melissa. Great. Any other questions? Any other comments? Marie, your points help navigate conflict in a healthy way. The process is really helpful. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Marie. And as I said already, take it and use it. And by the way, I didn't say this. Teach this, right? You don't need to give me any credit for it, right? I found this new way of going through conflict, and I think it works, right? So let's try this for a while, see how it goes. Because if only you have the script, it doesn't work. Well, hang on a minute. We're supposed to be agreeing on the problem right now. What? I don't know what you're talking about. So go and teach this and talk about this, and get your team into the conversation. Love this. All right. So, are there any other questions? Do you have any questions? You've got me here. We've still got the time. I want to give you a little gift as well for sticking around. But if you don't have any questions, just give me a thumbs up to your camera or a good to go, whatever's good for you. So Vicky's okay, Marie's okay, Melissa's okay. It's been amazing. I hope that you've got something out of this. I wanted to make this content light, but value deep and rich, because going into this time of the year, this is why I talk about conflict at this time of the year. I know there are people right now on the 17th of December that are dreading the conversations and etc. that they're going into with people that they don't normally get around because it's the time of year that it is. So I find that this type of help and training can not just be in the workplace. People can take it and utilize it elsewhere. So thank you for being here. Total waste of time me doing it if you weren't here for me to have the conversation. So I talked about my book at the start. As I said, I didn't write my book to make money with the book. Anyone that does that, I think, would probably go hungry to start with, unless it's some sort of bestseller. But I wrote the book to help. And if you pop on my website, professionalservicesleadership.com, there's an opportunity on the first page there to just pop in your name and email, I think it is, and then you can have a PDF copy of the entire book. So it's not just the first chapter to entice you to then buy the book. It's the whole book, right? And you'll see where this shift fits in and what other shifts that will help you as well to be able to do, to be able to put them into practice as well. All right, so have an amazing end of the year. Vicky, I hope that England do well in the cricket. Not too well, but I hope they do well. Whatever it is that you are doing over the break, whether you're having a break or whether you're not, stay safe, enjoy recuperating, have a time of reflection. I talked about this. I talk about this every year, and I'll do a video next week. It'll be in my LinkedIn profile. But of being able to reflect on the year in a certain way, instead of beating yourself up about what you didn't get done, reflect in a way that's going to help you moving forward. Refocus on what's important to you going into 2026, and then just relaunch when you get back with a total different mindset and energy. And I just pray that for you, 2026 is your best ever year. So thank you, and I'll talk to you again soon.